Hey there, and welcome back to From Pain Point to On Point. I'm your host, Britt, and I'm so glad that you're here with me today for two reasons. One, because today we're going to embark on an adventure, an exploration, if you will. We're going to dive deep into the explorer player type, and I'm going to trip over that every single time I say it, which is part of Bartle's player taxonomy. So if you have listened to our first episode on Bartle players, you kind of have a crash course on the explorer player type. So you already have an understanding that they are curious and creative and a little misunderstood in the sales world. The second reason why I'm excited is because of this tiny little mic that I have. If you are listening to this podcast and not watching this podcast, which is a thing that we do, you don't know that I'm talking into a very teeny tiny little mic. And I love it. And my marketing team yelled at me and told me that I have to get like a whole podcasting setup. And I'm doing that reluctantly, but I have decided that I'm only going to buy the things that bring me joy. And this tiny microphone brings me joy. So until they pry it from my cold, dead hands, this is going to be my podcast mic. Okay, so back to the Explorer player type. We're going to talk about that today. I'm really excited about it. It definitely is one of the most misunderstood player types. Even for us at SalesScreen, we talk a lot about the player types and we do a lot of content around player types because we just really love the taxonomy and we really do feel like it's a very tangible way to think about motivation and engagement, and sales teams do kind of like bucket into these player types fairly easily. The the outstanding one being the explorer player type. So I wanted to start with kind of the hardest one, and we'll kind of go from the hardest, kind of more difficult to engage with, or maybe more difficult to understand, and also potentially kind of like your middle performer band on your sales team. We're going to start with those and we're going to work our way up to kind of the very stereotypical, easily understood, commonly referenced killer player type. So, talking about explorers, recognizing them on your team can be difficult. I think nurturing them as a manager, especially within the sales world, is also very difficult. But if you can nurture them, if you can recognize them and you can engage with them, it's a huge game changer because explorers are not there to get the big wins, although they can, like killers. Killers are there for the biggest deals, the top of the leaderboard. That's what they want, right? And they're not like achievers who are just kind of like racking up points or racking up deals closed. Explorers are the ones on your team that are thriving on learning and experimenting and uncovering hidden opportunities. So today in this podcast episode, we're going to talk about what makes them tick, how to spot them, and kind of the reason why you guys are all here, how to engage with them without needing a gamification platform like SalesScreen, although we do know that it makes it easier if you have us. Okay, so let's dive in. So let's talk about what makes explorers so fascinating. So at their core, they are motivated by discovery, which I think that if you have depending on the type of sales that you're in, I think that sometimes discovery can be the arrow in the Achilles heel of a sales team. It can get very difficult for salespeople to dig in and find out more about their customers' pain points, etc. Because, and I relate to this very deeply, you are excited to talk about how you have the solution, right? Like it's kind of like, do I really want to dive into all of these problems? Because I already know your problems because I sell to your segment all the time and I'm just going to give you the solution. And explorers are not like that. Explorers love discovery. They are motivated by discovery. They want to know how things work, how they don't work, what's hidden underneath the surface. They are the ones that are always going to figure out different ways to pitch a product or find really innovative ways to connect with their customers and prospects. So, how does this differ from killers or achievers. So achievers, they really want to crush their goals. They're kind of all about the leaderboard, the rewards, the glory. And then killers are, like I said before, your very stereotypical ultra competitive reps. They love winning. They love letting everyone know that they're number one. They love everybody else losing. And explorers are just, they don't really have any of those traits. They're really driven by the journey. They like the process. That's what they're really into. And it when I was coming up with this and I was like writing down all of my thoughts around explorers, I was really thinking about how in sales the killer stereotype is kind of like the lone wolf, right? We think about sales kind of as like a lone wolf type of career choice. And I really think that in actuality, the killer is not the lone wolf, but really the explorer is. They're the ones that are going to go out on the uncharted paths. They don't really bring anybody with them because usually when they're doing things behind the back of their managers or they're doing it without anybody knowing. I've had a couple of these in my career, even at SalesScreen. I'm not going to rat on any names, but kind of like going against the strategy, right? As a sales manager, you put forth a strategy for your team, whether it's going after this specific customer segment or a style of outreach possibly. You have these strategies in place and you have them in place for a reason. Explorers are going to be the ones that kind of fly in the face of that, right? They're going to go out on their own and they're going to figure it out. They're going to be the ones that are going to be researching niche customer segments. They're going to be the ones that are going to tell you, like, I found this really cool insight about our customers because I deep dived into the data. Their motivation really is so intrinsic. They're really driven by the satisfaction, their own personal satisfaction of figuring things out, which is just totally different from killers or from achievers. And I think we also know when we talked about this a little bit about the Bartle player types in general in our first episode, is that sales managers very often are killers or achievers, right? Because they're good. They're good at their job. They get the deals, they close the deals, and that's kind of how you get promoted. That's usually how you get promoted almost anywhere is you're just really good at your job, and so they promote you up into a management position. That's great if you have an entire team of killers or an entire team of achievers and you're able to kind of resonate and relate to them. It's much different when you have people like explorers who seemingly on the surface are, they're not towing the line, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're going off and exploring different things or spending their time researching stuff that seems irrelevant. And it kind of just feels a little obstinate, right? It feels a little like you're just kind of like shirking management. And that's the total opposite of what they're doing. The thing that is really fascinating about explorers and the thing that is going to be really helpful for sales managers to understand moving forward is that explorers are the glue that connects all of the other player types. Achievers love the what. What can I win? What are the rewards? Killers love the how. How do I beat the competition? How do I dominate? And explorers love the why. Why does this strategy work? Why does this customer segment respond better? They're going to be the ones that uncover the insights that allow achievers to win all of the prizes and for the killers to crush all of the competition. They're going to bring to the table all of the insights that allow your team to be better, stronger, faster, smarter. And the difference between that, the difference between explorers and achievers and killers is that explorers really aren't focused on proving themselves. That's what makes them such a great asset to a sales team is that they're not in it for the glory. They're not in it for their name on the top of the leaderboard. That is not what gets them excited. They are more collaborative by nature and they're really willing and they want to share what they've learned because they get joy from the process. And that it's just invaluable to a team dynamic. They're going to be the ones that really are able to spot new trends, new opportunities, different ways of doing things that other sellers on your team may overlook. So we've kind of gone through a lot, but let's figure out and kind of talk about how you can tell if somebody is an explorer on your team, because there are a couple of signs. So, the first being that they are naturally inquisitive and they're going to ask you questions, and it's going to seem like they're questioning you. It's going to seem like they're questioning your strategy, your management, your leadership. That's not what's happening. They want to know, have we done this before? What happened the last time that we did it? Why are we doing it this way? They they want the why. They want the context. The context is going to give them more information for when they go out into the field and they start doing their own exploring by themselves, right? So the more information that you can give an explorer on the like on its face is going to be the best way to engage with them. The second sign that you have an explorer on your team would be that they are the people that gravitate toward research heavy tasks. They love to dig into data, and that can be any kind of data. That can be customer data, that can be deep diving into product capabilities or functionality. That can be understanding the market, the industry, the customer segments, the buyer personas. They love research. So they are going to dig into that research, and their goal there is to uncover patterns. So that's another hugely identifying explorer trait. The last one I would say would be that they're not in it for the commish. They're not chasing bonuses. They are not money driven. I know that it always feels so crazy to say it when we're talking about salespeople, but it's the truth. They're not money motivated. They really take a lot of pride in being the go-to person for information, whether that is information about your product or your service, whatever it is that you're selling, or the customers that you guys are selling to, or the market and the economy. They love to be the people that have and they love to come up with creative strategies to kind of fit into those and fit into that. So if you've got somebody on your team that is like kind of like your go-to person when it comes to information gathering, any type of information gathering, then you probably have an explorer on your team. So now that we've kind of given you that lay of the land, let's talk about how this ties into motivation style, because this is kind of like where we kind of like probably more of the more interesting psychology, because I think that, like I said, we often associate salespeople with the killer and achiever player type because they're the ones that are really driven to be number one, to be, to win all of the awards and to win all of the prizes and be on top of the leaderboard, the ultra competitive people. So, in those player types are all extrinsically motivated. We'll talk about that in a minute. But explorers are usually intrinsically motivated. They're fueled by curiosity, the satisfaction of learning. They thrive when they feel like they're uncovering new insights or being trusted to figure out things independently. So if we talk about that in comparison to achievers who are extrinsically motivated, they're going to chase the prize. They want the bonus. They want the leaderboard spot. They want recognition from their peers. Killers, same thing. They're extrinsically motivated. They are motivated mainly through competition. That is a slightly different, that's a subtlety between achievers and killers, is that achievers kind of want to win it all, and killers want to win via competition. The most that you're going to get out of a killer is when you put them in a direct competition with their peers. And we'll talk about that more in the killers episode. So yeah, killers want to win. They want everybody else to lose. They want to be the best. So explorers, they don't really need public recognition. That's nice. It's nice for them. It's nice to give it to them. It's not important or necessary to their motivation style or to getting them to perform their best. Because the thing that explorers really want is autonomy. They want the ability to dig into a problem. They want to be able to try something new. They want to be able to make some mistakes along the way, which I think is very important. They're going to be the ones that want to volunteer to try a new tool, or that they're going to test new strategies. That's fun for them. That's exciting for them. Where some sellers may find that really frustrating, explorers do not find that frustrating. They find it really interesting and engaging to kind of mix things up and try different tactics. And the thing that can be a little bit challenging when it comes to explorers and with being on a sales team that has a sales strategy is that if they do not have that autonomy and maybe you are micromanaging them a little bit, right? Because they're not really following the strategy that you've set forth. That can make them really disengaged. They they really lose interest pretty quickly if they know that they're not going to have any wiggle room to try out their own things, right? It's kind of like giving somebody, it's kind of like, well, maybe this is a bad analogy. Maybe this is a bad analogy, but it came to me and I'm going to use it. It's kind of like when you're going on a hike, right? Like when you're going to go on a hike somewhere in the woods and you have a map and you have all of the trails and you can see all of the trails. Actually, wait, hold on. Let me scratch this. Let's skiing. Skiing is the better analogy. SalesScreen's Norwegian and they love to ski. But then also, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people love to ski. Shout out Olga, who loves to ski. It's kind of like if you were to go skiing and you're at the mountain and there are all of these different trails, different things that you can go down, but you're only allowed to go down one. And it's like a blue square, which is a medium level difficulty in downhill skiing, if you didn't know that. And it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to do that once or twice, and then I'm going to get really freaking bored and I'm going to want to go to other trails. So, kind of like once they realize that they're not going to be able to do anything different, they're going to totally check out. And that's really not what you want when you are working with people that are going to be gathering information for you, right? I think we cannot underestimate the importance of an explorer on a sales team because they are going to be the people that they're going to be thinking as opposed to just kind of moving forward, moving forward, moving forward. You've got explorers who are really going to be digging into data, digging into insights, doing the research, really kind of thinking and mapping out different strategies. And the best way to get the best work out of an explorer is to foster and support that desire. Of course, there need to be guardrails, there needs to be guidance. You can't just let people do whatever the hell they want whenever the hell they want to. But it is very helpful to encourage that type of behavior because it's kind of the stuff that like sales managers, especially without a platform like SalesScreen, a little plug, it's the stuff that sales managers can struggle with, right? Because so much of this is the day-to-day doing, making the calls, booking the meetings, sending over the contract, setting up the deal rooms. There's so much execution in sales that it can be very hard, especially if you're a smaller, slightly more strapped team, to come up with all of the insights and information that's really been dug into to help fuel the strategy. So, all right. So, let's talk about how to engage explorers, right? So, I said it already. Say it again. You don't need a gamification platform in order to do this. And that's kind of the goal of this podcast, right? Is allow you to learn from this, get the insights, and put them in place on your team without the help of another platform. So you don't need a gamification platform for this, but it does help. Okay. So the first thing to engage an explorer is that you want to give them challenges that require exploration. It's not just about numbers, it's about depth. And I'm going to get into all of this a little bit more. The second thing, we already talked about this, but give them space for autonomy. Let them dig in and figure things out. Give them that opportunity. And then the next thing is celebrate the discoveries. I don't mean celebrate the wins. I don't mean celebrate the sales. I mean celebrate the discoveries. This is not about the end result. This is about the process that they took to get there. And this is something that we talk about in SalesScreen all the time because we talk to a lot of sales leaders, we deal with a lot of sales leaders. So We understand that a sales leader's first thought when they think about gamifying is to gamify results, right? Revenue one. How do we gamify revenue one? And that's great, but you don't need to gamify that. You don't. People want revenue. People want to hit their revenue targets. You already have that target. You already have that goal. So you really don't need to gamify revenue one, deals closed. That's not what you want to gamify. What you want to gamify is behavior. You want to gamify the behavior on your team that leads to revenue. A really simple way of breaking this down would be if you have your revenue goal, you know how many deals you need to have in order to hit that revenue goal. So you back that out to how many meetings do you need in order to get those deals closed? How many calls do you need to make in order to get those meetings? How many emails do you need to send in order to get those calls? Like you just kind of like back it all out, right? So and it's not the revenue that people have a hard time with. It's the cold calling, it's the emailing, it's the setting up the meetings, it's kind of like the grunt work of sales that is a little bit of a bitch, right? Um, so by gamifying the behavior, you are going to get to that revenue faster. So let's talk about some tactics and some actionable ways that you can engage and explore, like some real things you can put into place now. So the first thing is going to be that you're going to want to create challenges with depth. Explorers thrive on complexity. So for instance, as an example, let's say you work in real estate, okay? And you've got an agent who is constantly diving into policy details. They're the ones that know about that obscure rider that nobody ever sells, but it could be a game changer for certain clients. So create a challenge for them, something like find three underutilized policy features and present how they could help us upsell. So this gives them room to explore while still focusing on a tangible outcome. And that can be really helpful for them. The second thing is offering autonomy and exploration time. So you want to allow your explorers to carve time out for research or experimentation. So for example, for banking, maybe your explorer identifies that younger customers respond better to TikTok videos about how to save money. So instead of dismissing that TikTok is not a part of your playbook or it's not a part of your strategy or social isn't part of it or whatever, give them a little bit of a budget and let them test it out. And if that works, it could potentially open up an entire new segment for you. Sandra, please do not make me start a TikTok channel. All right, the third one, celebrate insights, not just results. I think that this is probably, if there was a key to gamification, if there was anything that you could walk away from this podcast, from gamification in general, from SalesScreen, anything, if there's anything that you could walk away with, it would be celebrate the insights, celebrate the behavior, celebrate the journey, not just the results. I think that's fair for every player type. But for explorers, they are more likely to stay motivated if their discoveries are acknowledged. We talked about how they don't need a ton of acknowledgement. They don't need to be top of the leaderboard. They don't need to be constantly lauded for their accolades, but we do need to recognize the discoveries that they're making and and encourage them with that and appreciate what they're bringing to the table because majority of the time when explorers are going out and they're figuring things out and they're coming back with information, it is information that is going to be helpful for the whole team. Um, so celebrate their insights, not just their results. Okay. And then the last one that I've got for you is building a knowledge exchange. So they love to learn. Explorers love to learn, but they also love to teach. They love to share the information. They want to share the wealth with everybody. So hosting weekly sessions or monthly sessions, or even just having like a little bit of time set aside on your team meeting every week or however often you have them, where they can share some insights that they've discovered, it not only helps explorers feel like they're contributing and feel collaborative, and also encourages them to continue exploring, but it also just feeds their overall curiosity. And that is beneficial to the whole team. Everybody wins. All right. This has been a lot. This has been a long podcast, you guys. We're almost done. We're almost done with explorers. I could talk about explorers all day because I consider myself to be a socializer sun with a rising moon explorer. So I justice for explorers. But I want to talk about some things that you should not do with explorers, some things that you should probably stay away from as a manager if you have an explorer on your team. So the first thing is going to be, and we've already talked about this, micromanaging. Explorers love their autonomy. They love it. They really value it. They want to be able to do kind of what they want to do, right? And again, we're doing this within guardrails, within parameters. We're not letting people go off the rails, but we don't want to micromanage them. We don't want to be jumping down their throats all the time. The next thing is going to be ignoring their ideas. That's sad. If an explorer feels like their insights aren't really valued, then they're not going to engage. And again, this isn't about shouting them out every single day. This isn't about constantly patting them on the back, but it is about recognizing that they are contributing. And I think sometimes on a sales team, it can be a little bit hard to see the people who are contributing in a real way that is helping people, but are not maybe bringing in the biggest sales or closing the biggest deals, right? So it's just being cognizant that they are contributing, they are being collaborative. So let's recognize that and really shout them out when it matters. And then the last thing, which kind of feels like maybe even a little counterintuitive to everything that we've been talking about today, but the last thing is don't overload them with admin work. I know it seems like when you have an explorer on your team, you're like, great, perfect, our in-house researcher. And to an extent, I think that's true. I think that is it can be very helpful for a team, but also recognizing that they're still selling, they still have deals to close, they still have targets to hit. And giving them too much administrative work can really bring them down, and research work and all of those things. You want them to come to team meetings prepared and ready to share information, but you don't want them spending their entire week putting together a presentation on what they've Googled that week. It's just that's not what we're going for. So we're looking for a little bit of a balance when it comes to giving explorers the room to run, but also, keeping them on track. And that was a really good metaphor. All right. So, wrapping this up, this has been a long podcast and you guys are tired of hearing me. Explorers, they are they're amazing. They're great. I love explorers. I think again, they're very misunderstood and misrepresented and underrepresented on sales teams. I think that they are hugely influential and valuable to achieving sales goals. They are pushing boundaries. They are uncovering hidden opportunities. They are sparking innovation. And by giving them autonomy to explore and to celebrate the insights that they come up with, and giving them challenges that let them dig in a little bit deeper, you are going to keep them engaged and you're also going to unlock their full potential for your team. So, quick little action plan for you sales managers listening. Spot your explorers by their curiosity and love for learning. That's your number one indicator. Engage with them with complex challenges and opportunities for discovery. And avoid micromanaging, ignoring their ideas, and drowning them in admin tasks. And I think a good way to close this out is understanding and remembering that sales is human. By understanding your individual motivations, by understanding the individuals on your team and the type of person that they are and the things that they care about and why they care about those things, you can really turn their strengths into tangible wins. And that means money. That means revenue. So engage your explorers. I hope this has been helpful. I hope this has been interesting for you guys and that you learned something a little bit new and that maybe you were able to, even as we were talking, spot the explorers on your team. How amazing would that be? But that is it. That's it for today's episode of From Pain Point to On Point. You can join us again in 2 weeks, and we will be talking about socializers, that is what I fall into. I'm really excited for the socializer episode, really excited to record it for you guys, and looking forward to chatting again. So, have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you here next time.